his own currency, whether it's crypto or otherwise. And one of the reasons that we have to be very careful is we have a currency right now, the dollar. And I'm a big fan of the dollar. I'm a big fan of our currency, and I don't want to have other currencies coming out and hurting or demeaning the dollar in any way. And China's looking to do, China's certainly not looking to back the dollar, but right now they're based on the dollar, and they would probably have to stay that way unless we do something very foolish in our country. I mean, the problem that I have with so much has happened, whether you look at the border, the horror show at the border, or the horror show of the Afghan withdrawal, is our country is losing credibility. And if you look at a monetary system based on the dollar, if you start losing credibility, all of a sudden you're going to lose that strong monetary system. And we have to be very careful about that.
With epic amounts of debt to GDP, Fed chairman, insider trading, sanctions, the move towards green energy, and away from the petrodollar, there will be a shift away from the reserve currency.
Their question on both sides will be, is this an adequate response to what China's doing? And I think that if there was a bill in Congress about dollar innovation in creating innovation in our financial system that would create more global competitiveness, that could be successful. But there has to be privacy built in a true rationale where it's under the competitiveness umbrella. I think right now, given where we are and given that we are going to be heading into the midterms and a presidential election, my fear is that this becomes overly political and you will see two different camps where the consumer is left hanging. Because I think from a global competitiveness perspective, the consumer needs help. The consumer needs help with access to financial services, and we as a country need to compete against China, but we also need to transition to an era of dollar innovation and not be complacent. So I think it's going to take some time, and like most things in Congress, it likely will have to be an emergency. The Patriot Act, as you remember, was languishing in Congress for years in the late 90s. And it took 9/11, unfortunately, to pass the Patriot Act. So my sense is we'll need some trigger event to move the needle to actually get a digital dollar into a position.
Augustin Carstens, Klaus Schwab, they both predicted a cyber attack, and I think that's about to rear its ugly head. Dollar innovation, or the Fed coin, if developed early, will secure demand for dollars in the Internet of Value. The politicians are going back and forth, and eventually there will be a tipping point in the global economy that will force their hands to move forward. When the Fed coin is available, crypto networks can work on the side of and fill the gaps of the Fed dollar, enhancing the Fed network.
Well, we need another crisis like COVID. So COVID sped all this up. And so a lot of bad things about COVID. But, one thing that COVID did change is now everybody's like working from home, and everybody can they don't have to go to the office anymore. And so how privacy and security, how payments work, everybody's like starting to move away from that accelerated everything way beyond my imagination. COVID's kind of like tapering out now. We're not getting any more after fumes. It really just depends on when the next crisis comes that causes us to figure out how to take things to another level. It might be climate change, whatever. But I am really excited about the next 5 years ahead. And I expect in this period of time that people will start to have things like a non-custodial wallet that isn't just a kind of a geeky technical side thing. It's a seat at the table. And so I'm predicting that within 5 years, a lot of people will hold a certain amount of value and will do a certain amount of their transactions with funds that are electronic, controlled by them, that don't rely on any other custodian. They'll just rely on themselves. And it's not because they're geeks, it'll because the non-custodial world will have access and acceptability that'll start to compete with what's out there in the custodial. And you know what? It'll pay a lot better interest rates because staking, et cetera, whatnot, is much better economic returns when you have your money invested in something that doesn't have all the intermediaries skimming everything off. So I'm kind of excited about the next 5 years.
That's a great.
We are moving to the Internet of Value, and as trillions pour into the market, the solutions that are being developed will be compliant. That means an identity component. Your activity on the Internet of Value will have a link to your digital passport.
Third, the exposure of the banking system or the financial system perhaps to crypto assets is also growing, and that is a particular sense of urgency to address these issues. And then perhaps last, the use of crypto assets in payments and settlement is still limited, but this can change quickly, especially through the stable coins and other similar arrangements.
Things can change quickly, and that is what is happening. The Fed announced that they will be updating to ISO 222 messaging. The Fed originally stated that it would take phases to move over to ISO standards. Now they're saying it could take a single day. Ripple partner Volante is part of the Fed Now pilot program.
To go back 20 years, it was not really an interesting topic, I think, commercially and at central banks. And this has changed. Right now, the question is, who will win? Who will provide the services? I do think the incumbents are at risk of falling behind the wheel. There are big tech companies out there that provide new solutions. There's Finality. There are the central banks that now get into fields where they have not been before. So I think it will be interesting, and I don't know who will win, right? But I think the incumbents are really at risk.
Mm-hmm. By which you mean banks?
Banks, it can maybe Swift, maybe Swift. Who knows?
Mm-hmm. So it could be infrastructure. Could be infrastructures as well. Okay.
Infrastructures as well.
Yeah.
The incumbents are falling behind, but will not be left out. Ripple is offering software solutions to enable the banks. The plumbing of the old system is being updated to ISO, and Ripple is ISO compliant.
We have tried to do in the cyber realm. We're going to have to do it in a public-private partnership. And this is truly an opportunity and an inflection point, Kate, for Silicon Valley as they compete against Shenzhen in China. And so we will need to truly have a Marshall Plan type of effort for dollar innovation. And just like great power competition was really made a point of the last administration's national security strategy, I really believe that dollar innovation needs to be risen to that level in the next national security strategy, because this is truly a geoeconomic moment in this digital transition.
America's innovation is America's strongest defense. This is a matter of national security. This is a new space race or Cold War. During that time period, the U.S. government relied on the private sector to enable us. The Fed coin is a network, and for there to be demand for the Fed coin, it needs to be attractive for people to use the dollar. The applications built on the top of and on the side of the Fed coin is going to drive demand. The U.S. government seems like they're anti-crypto, but this will change when everything is at stake. This is a national emergency. At one point, there will be an event for this reality to sink in. Whether that's a cyber attack or a financial crisis or China gaining significant traction with their CBDCs, it's coming. And U.S. lawmakers will be reactionary, clearing the way for crypto.
Is this concept of, you're calling it cryptoization, and it's specifically referring to the emergence of using crypto assets in countries that perhaps there might be concerns about their macro conditions, about the state of their own domestic currency, and we're seeing this trend, in relatively fast growth in across Africa, across Asia, Latin America. Is there any way that governments in those places could turn what seems to be a negative, right, that there's a bet against their national currency going on here, to turn it into a positive? Because, there clearly is, innovative potential. There's the capacity in some respects to leapfrog if you were to, encourage smart, well-regulated innovation in the crypto sector. Can they take advantage of what might otherwise be a negative into a positive?
For sure. I think we mentioned that cost, speed, access are three things that the crypto ecosystem can do well. Transparency perhaps might be one that it's a bit more problematic, as we discussed earlier. But all these are problems that existing cross-border payment infrastructures have. So the crypto ecosystem can help in some regards.
The efficiencies that crypto offers will boost the global economy. With eliminating friction from the system, the economy can thrive. Financial applications, trade applications, real estate, etc. All of these industries get an update, giving cost savings to the people. With a prosperous economy, the confidence in the sovereign currency is stronger. The crypto networks that provide utility are vastly on the back end and are not designed for the retail consumer.
Lots of use cases for decentralized and centralized finance. And I'll give you an example of one that I think is ripe for disrupting. The currency markets and currency trading are the largest markets in the world. Trillions of dollars every week are exchanged between different currencies for many different reasons. And every time you do that, you get clipped for 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 basis points. So if I want to buy a Swiss stock trading on Zurich, I have US dollars, I have got to convert my USD into Swiss francs and then buy the position. When I sell it, I got to do the thing in reverse. And I pay a lot of fees and there's a lot of friction. If we had an agreement in a payment system between the two regulators in Switzerland or Euro or British pounds or Singapore or Asia, we could pay in one single currency or payment system that could be provided by a very secure decentralized finance or a stable coin like a USDC or a DAI. And I would avoid all those fees. It would cut the fees by 90%. And I think the pressure to do that will continue to grow now that we have the technology in ledger-based blockchains where we can actually track these trades in perpetuity. And so, yes, I believe there'll be disruption. Yes, I think a lot of currency traders are going to lose their jobs over the next few years. And I think that's a good thing. It makes the whole system better, faster, more transparent, more secure, and above all, much cheaper, lower cost.
Kevin O'Leary is describing a situation that fits XRP's use case. We saw that the Swiss Digital Asset Exchange 6 and SBI are partnered. What if there was a way for American investors to invest in foreign stocks without all the friction and vice versa? The markets become global and access to foreign markets as well as American stocks can be open for anyone.
So let me put this statement out there to anybody who's working on smart contracts, whether they're building on top of Ethereum or building on top of Solana. Who's going to sign your smart contracts and what are they going to sign it with? I mean, you can have a title registry for all the diamonds in the world or all the cars or all the art. And if that registry is just signed with a bunch of private keys, how do you think that's going to work for like compliance and, things like money laundering? Like, you're going to have to sign it with something that goes back to a real person. It's called UBO, the ultimate beneficial owner. You're going to have to green DeFi. You're going to have to make DeFi be green. Right now, the regulators are over their heads. They don't really know how and what to do about DeFi, but they can really mess you up. And they will really mess up DeFi if they think it's just an end run to basically avoid all the compliance and controls that are meant for the custodial world. So, what Global ID is, it's just a way, instead of just giving out a private key, you give out a private key that is part and matched with an identity. Now, the identity can be very lightweight. It might just be round tripping a mobile phone number, but it is saying that in the smart contract, to complete the smart contract, it's not just enough you get a private key and you're off, and and anybody with that private key in the future can if it's something that gives a commission when you resell something, like as long as you have the private key, you get the money. Well, you can do that, but I can sure as hell tell you that's not going to be compliant. While that's technically authentication and money will be paid out, you can be sure that guys with guns and badges are going to come knocking on the door. They won't come knocking on the door for $5 or $10. When this gets to scale, when Colonial gets shut down, those anonymous Bitcoin addresses, they're not so much anonymous. When people really want to track you down and you've been involved in Silk Road or ransomware, the Americans, the Russians, the Chinese, all these other countries, they're not stupid. They can look through a tumbler, they can use Chainalysis, they can use AnChain. If somebody steals a big enough amount of money from me, I'm going to be involved in tracking it down, right? And you can be sure the authorities will be as too. So we're trying to get ahead of that. And so developers who want to be on the green side of compliance, I strongly suggest, rather than trying to solve this problem from scratch, look at a neutral solution like Global ID, because we're not committed to any set of identity providers. Just pick whatever identity providers you want, tell people to come with that credential, and that's your defense. That's your explanation. That's your playbook to show to officials and say, why did you buy this, build this system with no controls? And so we love DeFi. We love that it's bottom up. We love that everybody gets a seat at the table, but we're not doing this as an end run around compliance. Right now, all these DeFi wallets on Ethereum generally don't have identity built in. And so you have everything that's happening on DeFi is basically without identity. And then everything with custodial wallets is generally with identity. And I'm like, that doesn't make sense. Why shouldn't the credentials for non-custodial wallets and smart contracts be as good or better than what we have in the custodial legacy world today? We can build a better diamond registry. Let's do it.
DeFi and crypto has a future, but it will comply with KYC and AML laws. Your license or passport, your diploma, health records, legal records, your UBI wallet address will be linked to your digital identity. This will provide a wealth of information that artificial intelligence can analyze and build profiles. That is why I believe Facebook had their attack and is in front of Congress now. Who rules the data needs to be addressed, and I believe that's reserved for the powers that be. I believe we're going to have a perfect storm of events. Crypto has a blow off top, a massive cyber attack, financial crisis, emergency regulations for AI, crypto, and digital identity, the Fed coin. After the chaos, the Internet of Value emerges from the ashes of the old system. We live invested in an electric information environment that is quite as imperceptible to us as water is to fish. Marshall McLuhan. Thanks everyone, I hope you enjoyed the show. Please take a moment to like, subscribe, and comment. When you do that, the YouTube algorithms will suggest my show to others. If you comment and someone replies to text a number or send a WhatsApp with my avatar, this is a scam. Please do not interact with them. I report thousands of these messages a week, but they come out of nowhere and I cannot report them in real time. If you enjoy my content, please consider supporting my channel with Patreon, where I post information, have a Discord chat, weekly Zoom chats with open discussions and technical assistance, and these videos are ad-free. Thanks everyone.